G'day guys! Dave Lee coming at you once again from Down Under, and welcome to another movie review. Today I'm coming at you with a video which has been highly recommended from my viewers out there. So I'm just gonna do it. We're gonna kick into it. This is my spoiler-filled review of Star Wars The Last Jedi. Now, being a spoiler review, I'm gonna throw out sort of all the formalities. I'm not gonna go over the plot or any of that kind of stuff which is sort of designed to entice you into going to see the movie. I'm assuming if you're watching this, you've seen the movie already. I'm gonna talk about my thoughts on just about everything in this movie. I'm just gonna spoil everything. If you haven't watched this movie already, what are you doing watching this? Go and see it and then come back and watch this. I'm gonna say from the very top of this, I'm gonna get a lot more personal with this than I do with a normal movie review. These are my personal views. I've done a couple of videos recently where I have expressed personal views, as is the landscape of YouTube. It's something that you just expect as someone who's putting your views out there. You get people in the comments who go, "You're wrong. You suck. I hate you. I hate your statements. I hate your thoughts." These are my personal views. I respect yours. Respect mine, please. I know I'm going to get a lot of those comments anyway, and even if I say... But look, these are my personal views on this movie, and I have strong personal views on this movie, and I understand other people out there have really strong views on this movie as well. Like, this movie has polarized audiences. This movie has polarized Star Wars fans from other Star Wars fans. I think that's kind of a good thing, in a way, because it's opened up this great discussion. But then, on the other hand, it's opened up this really sort of toxic communication from certain fans as well. I think everyone's opinion is respected. I respect everyone's opinion on this movie. But again, going into this, these are my personal thoughts. You have your personal thoughts. They may line up with mine. They may not line up with mine, but that's fine. That's fine. That's all part of this conversation. Now, at the top of this video, if you agree with things I have to say, if you don't agree with things I have to say, just say them down the bottom. But don't say them in a way that's like, your opinion sucks. Because my opinion doesn't suck. Your opinion doesn't suck. Everyone has an opinion, and it all counts, okay? You're here to hear my thoughts, my opinions. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself, not on behalf of everyone else. So, let's get into this. From the top of this, as you saw in my previous review, which I filmed pretty much directly after I came out of the cinema, within about an hour of me having seen the movie, I filmed it. I was on a buzz, I was on a high, I delivered a really positive review. Since then, I have seen the movie again, so I've viewed the movie twice. My thoughts haven't changed on this movie. I loved this movie. I adore this movie. This movie did things to me personally, emotionally, that I haven't felt from a movie since I first watched Star Wars 20 years ago. I felt such a deep connection to this movie and some of the themes and the story that this was trying to tell, and I was really emotional. I was emotional in a lot of points in this movie. I'll own up to it. I cried, I think 3 times in this movie. I actually cried, and I think it's like no tears I've ever had in a movie before, because it's a personal experience. This isn't just a sad movie you're watching where you cry because the dog dies and it's sad. This is like characters that I've had a personal connection with for 20 years. So things like the final scene where Luke and Leia finally meet up. Obviously it's like the Force Ghost Luke talking with Leia. And that whole scene just had me crying. I mean, I had tears rolling down my face. Both times I saw it too, I teared up at this specific moment, because it was just such a... I feel like I'm getting emotional again now, but it was such a beautiful, touching moment. And I felt like, even though when they were filming that, they obviously didn't know that Carrie would be passing away before this movie came out, but I felt like, it just felt like such a beautiful way to send Carrie out of the movie. It was such a beautiful, respectful, touching moment. Luke and Leia connecting, and some of the things they were just saying was just like, wow, this is just such a beautiful way to sort of help us let go of Carrie. More on Carrie Fisher and Princess Leia soon, but I'm saying this because I came out of this movie with a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions that, as I said, I haven't felt in a movie for a long time. Not only that though, I saw things in this movie that sparked my imagination and that I just thought was just wow. Just like wow. Like Owen Wilson, wow. I saw things in this that I haven't experienced in a movie for a long time that sparked my imagination in ways that I didn't think my imagination could continue to be sparked at 26 years of age. 20 years since my mind was shattered when I first watched Star Wars. I felt Rian Johnson was so brave and so bold in doing some of the things he did in this movie. He killed off Luke Skywalker. He turned Luke Skywalker into this completely polarizing character, something completely different to what everyone was expecting. More on that again soon. I have to say, I loved what he did with Luke Luke Skywalker from the top, but we're going to get back to that. He split up all our characters, just like George Lucas did with Empire Strikes Back. You have such connections to these characters in the first movie, and a big part of the first movie is like sort of the interaction and the chemistry with the characters. You go into a sequel and you break them all up. It changes the whole game. It changes the stakes. It changes the emotion of the movie. It changes everything. And it's such a bold move to split the characters up. I think it was great. The characters go off on their own journeys. Some were fantastic, some were not that fantastic. We'll talk about that again soon as well. So I had so many emotions going into this. I thought it was just fantastic. I thought this was a work of genius. And I came out of this movie honestly thinking that this was going to be incredibly well received. I thought this movie is going to blow everything out of the water. If you don't know, if you didn't see my first review, I saw a preview screening in Melbourne about 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday prior to the 12 a.m. wide open of the movie. So I got to see this before pretty much most people. So I sort of went to bed that night on a buzz thinking, yeah, geez, this movie is awesome. Rian Johnson has made an incredible Star Wars movie. This is one of the best. People are going to love this. I woke up in the morning to just streams of hate from fans of Star Wars. People who just hated the movie. And it's not a dislike, it's a hate. There's a hate culture around this movie. Star Wars fans did not like this movie. Star Wars fans of old, those people who have grown up with the expanded universe, people that just didn't like the way this movie went. I'm not someone who ever grew up with the extended universe, or the expanded universe. I never read the novels or the comics growing up. The only expanded universe I've ever read is the current stuff. The current comics, I love them. I never read any of the old stuff, so I didn't go into this movie having a preconceived notion of what the story should be or what I thought the story was going to be, that people who have spent 40 years of their lives reading expanded universe material that is no longer considered canon by the Disney company. I respect the opinion of those people, and I understand them, and I understand the concerns, and I feel sad and upset. And I won't say it's put a dampener on the movie for me, but it does sort of make me feel like, oh wow, okay, so this is a completely different thing to what everyone thought was going to happen for 40 years. But for me, for someone who doesn't have a connection to that expanded universe stuff, this was awesome. I loved it. I love the direction this movie went in so many ways. I've had conversations with so many people I know. Many people loved it, many people hated it. I know people who have grown up, who grew up for 30 plus years reading expanded universe. And you know, that was Bible. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I mean, Disney had to wipe the slate clean to start fresh. I mean, the thing people complained about with the prequels was that they were so different. And I feel like it's the same complaints that's happening now. It's so different to the original movies. But then when Force Awakens came out, people were complaining that it's too much like the original movies. It's too much like A New Hope. Give us something different. And then they give us something different and people complain again. There's always some sort of culture where people have to complain about something. They have to find something to complain about. That being said, I'm going to do a little bit of complaining. Alright, so before I get into all that stuff, I'm going to readdress all that soon. I know this is a little bit choppy. I'm sort of flying by the seat of my pants. Usually I'd write a review and then just sort of read it out. I'm going off my head, just sort of throwing out my thoughts. I said it's very informal. So I'm going to get back to a lot of that stuff later. Right now, before we get into that stuff, I want to end this review on a positive note. So first off, I want to start talking about things I didn't like in this movie. Because this wasn't a perfect movie, don't get me wrong. I gave this a very high rating the other day, and I think I'm gonna stand by that rating. While this was the Star Wars movie I always wanted my whole life, it wasn't a perfect movie. There were things in this that didn't work for me. The things that worked for me outweighed the things that didn't work. So the things that didn't work for me didn't hinder my enjoyment of the movie. Like, I didn't come out of the movie going, I hated that, so I hate the movie. First of all, the humor in the movie. I addressed this in my original review. I can go more in depth now. Some of it worked for me, some of it didn't. Some of it felt like Star Wars humor. Some of it felt like Star Wars prequel humor, which is kind of like cringeworthy, like, oh geez, did they go there? It felt like humor that you'd expect from a Marvel movie, and while I love that kind of humor in a Marvel movie, I will always defend when people go, Marvel, they're too funny, they're for kids. But it didn't feel like it belonged in the Star Wars universe. It's a weird feeling. I'm talking about some of the gags with BB-8. I love BB-8. I loved all the gags with BB-8 in the original movie. But stuff like BB-8 being used as a slot machine, I didn't think that was funny. That was annoying. That annoyed me. And then later on, BB-8 shot like hundreds of casino chips into the guard's face. Where did these hundreds of chips come from? The guy put like 3 chips in him and that was it. Was just BB-8 just rolling around the casino getting stuff thrown inside him all night by these drunken aliens? I really disliked that gag. I didn't like it. I also didn't like the ending where BB-8 saves the day by driving an Imperial Walker or First Order Walker. What? That was the only point of the movie where I actually threw my hands up and went, what the hell is this? Why? Okay, I understand he's a droid. He can probably get inside this machine and like overpower it and sort of maybe take over and control it because it's a droid, but I didn't think it was like BB-8 saving the day in an Imperial Walker. Just the visual was like, that's not funny. I didn't think it was funny. The scenes on Canto Bight, I feel like you're getting a lot of really negative stuff. Yes, it drives the movie down. It pulls the movie down for a little bit. It feels like it drags. The movie just kind of comes to a halt for this scene. A lot of people are saying it was unnecessary. It was boring. It didn't need to be there. It had no bearing on the story. I tend to agree, but I also think that it was important to sort of set little bits and pieces up for the future. Maybe they could have been done in a different way that wasn't so long and maybe boring, but I felt like it had its place. And on second viewing, I liked it even more because I felt like it had some really good character moments with Finn and Rose. And even Benicio del Toro's DJ, I didn't like him that much on first viewing. I thought this is, again, I thought it was another one of those examples of bits of humor that I didn't like. I thought this character is just too out there for me. I liked him on second viewing. He had heart, he had soul, and he was doing the right thing for whoever he believed he should be doing the right thing for at that moment in time. So I didn't mind the stuff on Canto Bight. On second viewing, I found a lot of really beautiful character moments in there. I found a lot of things in there. First time you view these movies, it's like sensory overload. Second time, you kind of get to soak in a little bit more of the story and the characters and the emotion. And I felt like these scenes had a lot of emotion. I liked them, okay? I liked the Canto Bight sequences. I didn't like the BB-8 gags in Canto Bight. Some of the humor I did like. I liked the banter with Rey and Luke Skywalker. Stuff like, where do you come from? I come from nowhere. No one comes from nowhere. Where do you come from? Jakku. Oh, well, Jakku pretty much is nowhere. I thought that was great. I thought it was hilarious. I also liked the whole thing where he's training her and she's sitting and he tells her to reach out for the Force and she reaches out and tickles her hand with the leaf. Oh, you can feel it. It's the Force. I thought that was great too. So I liked that. That's the kind of humor in the movie I like. I thought that was really in keeping with Star Wars humor, to me anyway. The one thing I hated in this movie, I'm going to say it, I hated this. There's the only one thing in this movie I hated, and that was the moment Rey handed Luke Skywalker the lightsaber. My feelings, my emotions were going wild. I was going, oh my lord. 2-year wait is leading to this moment. I'm finally going to find out how Luke Skywalker reacts, what he's going to say to Rey, what's their first interaction going to be like. Oh my lord, Luke Skywalker, this is going to be epic. He throws it over his shoulder. I didn't hate this because it was out of character for Luke Skywalker. I hated this because it felt like they used that as a punchline to a joke. It almost felt like as an audience we'd been taken advantage of. It was almost like the filmmakers went, we're going to leave this movie on this huge cliffhanger. For 2 years, we're going to have people wondering, what is Luke Skywalker going to do? What majestic thing is he going to say? And then he just throws it over his shoulder and walks away. I felt like they used it as a punchline. They took all our theories, they took everything that we were expecting, or everything that we were just like, what's gonna happen, and they turn into a joke. This whole movie is about turning everything on its head, and I really respect that, and it's so bold and brave of Rian Johnson to take everything that everyone was speculating and go, nah, stuff that, this is how it is. I love that about the movie, but I didn't love that they did it with this moment, because this was the big moment, this was the huge moment everyone had been waiting for, and I felt like they took us for granted. They used this as a punchline to a joke, and the joke was on us. You guys, you've been theorizing about this. Well, guess what? He's just going to throw it over his shoulder and show complete disrespect to this lightsaber that means so much to the franchise. That's the only thing I really had a problem with. Other than that, I loved Luke's portrayal in the movie, but this one moment, I wish they'd handled that a little bit more respectfully. I felt like, to me, that was the only moment they disrespected the fans in the movie. A lot of people disagree. A lot of people will say they disrespected the fans the entire movie. No, I just felt this one moment, to me, was like, wow, I've been taken for granted. But that sets in motion the entire movie, which is basically again, just going, you guys are wrong. It's not going to go the way you think. Again, what Luke Skywalker says in the movie. So, they're my only qualms with the movie. Let's talk about the things I loved in this movie. There's a lot of things I loved. Excuse me if I keep going to my phone, because I've written down a lot of thoughts. There's so many thoughts going on in here that I feel like I just need to go to this every now and then. Make sure I've covered absolutely everything I want to talk about. Let's talk about Luke Skywalker. A lot of people didn't like Luke. Luke Skywalker was very different in the expanded universe. Again, from what I've heard, I never read any of it myself. Luke Skywalker was like a Grand Jedi. He was the first Grandmaster Jedi. He had powers beyond any Jedi being in the universe before or after him. He trained hundreds of Jedi. He trained people to train Jedi. And he abolished all kinds of crazy Jedi laws and basically made the world a perfect place. He was a hero. He was a perfect hero. But what this movie does, it polarizes that. It goes, Luke wasn't a hero, he was a legend. Okay, and all those stories you've heard, they're legends. And I love that. I love that they've taken the old expanded universe and they've chucked that Legends banner on it. These are legends. And this movie addresses that really beautifully in the idea that so many people around the world, as shown with these kids on Canto Bight, is that so many people around the world are growing up with tall tales and stories and legends of Luke Skywalker. Some of it's true, some of it's not. So this old expanded universe, these are all legends. These are all legends of Luke Skywalker. Are they true? Are they not? If you're a reader of the old expanded universe, and you have been for 30, 40 years, all the power to you. And if you want to believe that these legends are true, go for it. That's the idea of a legend. I think it builds a whole mysticism behind the expanded universe. Is like, it adds like this depth, like, okay, it's not officially canon, but we'll call it legend, so if you want to believe it, like you might want to believe a legend, then believe it! Go ahead, no one's stopping you from believing it. So it takes this idea in this movie, there are so many tall tales about Luke Skywalker that the guy turns out to be completely different to what you imagined. You out there as the audience, as people who've read the expanded universe and expected Luke Skywalker to be this perfect human being, to be the hero and the legend that he was in the expanded universe, are facing what these kids and what Rey is facing in this movie, and that is Luke Skywalker was not the legend that you always believed him to be. People call it character assassination. People say they just completely demystified Luke. They turned him into something completely different. People are saying Mark Hamill didn't even like it. Watch the full interviews. Watch the full interviews. Don't watch a supercut of clips of Mark Hamill talking about the movie without showing the whole clip of him talking. It's taking everything out of context. I mean, one of the supercuts I saw of Mark Hamill Hates Star Wars was a clip of Bob Iger talking about, well, we're making a decision for the company. We are making a decision. This is what's good for the company. This is what's good for business. As if he was talking about why they made these decisions with Star Wars. No, that was him talking about the Fox-Disney merger. That was not him talking about Star Wars or The Last Jedi. Completely taken out of context. Don't believe any of that stuff that you see, please. Every interview I've heard with Mark Hamill is him saying, I didn't like it. I didn't like the direction. I didn't like this. Didn't like this. At first. And he speaks with Johnson, they workshop together, and they come to an understanding of, wow, this is the best way to take this character. And it was the best way to take this character. People went into this expecting a perfect Luke Skywalker, the perfect movie. Life is not perfect. Star Wars is not perfect. Star Wars is cyclical. Star Wars starts at one thing, ends up another thing, and then starts all over again. Okay, so this universe cannot exist if there is balance in the Force. Okay, this universe, these stories rely on the Force being unbalanced. There always needs to be Sith. There always needs to be people overthrowing the light side. But there also needs to be light overthrowing the dark. And this is the mistakes that these generations keep making, is that they're trying to get balance in overthrowing the other side, but realizing at the end that the only way to finally have balance is that both sides exist. So we've come into this idea where Luke Skywalker has turned his back on the Jedi Order because things didn't go the way that he planned them. I think that's bloody perfect. Absolutely perfect way to take this movie and to take this character. Luke Skywalker, I've heard people say Luke Skywalker was a deadbeat. He didn't succeed at anything in life. He sucked at life. He sucked at being a Jedi. He didn't train people properly. He didn't train one single Jedi. Well, hang on a minute. He did. Luke Skywalker had a temple where he trained Jedi. Who knows how many pupils, but I'm assuming he probably had hundreds of pupils there. He was very, very successful in this, and then one of them turned bad. And one of them defied him. And Luke Skywalker fell to that fate, that he was so trustworthy that Ben Solo fell to this fate, which was he turned to the dark side under his nose. Luke Skywalker was ignorant. He was arrogant. He's a real person. He's not like a hero. He's not like a perfect, like, person. I feel like Luke Skywalker successfully trained a whole bunch of Jedi, and then Ben Solo / Kylo Ren slaughtered them all. Of course he did. He wasn't the only pupil at the temple. He was not the only one there. He didn't just burn down the temple. He committed mass murder. He murdered a whole bunch of pupils in front of Luke Skywalker's eyes. That is enough to give any man PTSD. That is enough to ruin one man's life. I don't care if he's a normal person or he's a Jedi Knight. That's enough to ruin someone's life. Luke Skywalker basically got PTSD. He ran away. He turned his back on the Jedi Order, just as anyone would do. It's like, holy crap, what the hell do I do now? I don't want anything to do with this. He went into recluse, and he sort of absorbed back into himself. I think it's such a beautiful, poignant way to start this story. Is like, he's not the legend we always thought he was. He was a real, flawed human. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that Mark Hamill finally came around to with Rian Johnson, is that he's a real person. He's not this legend. This is how we need to tackle this story. I loved it. Thought it was real. Thought it was beautiful. I thought Mark Hamill's performance was phenomenal. He was incredible in this movie. I loved Luke Skywalker in this movie. That's all I'm going to say on that. I know there's a huge debate about that, but they're my thoughts. Let's talk about Rey's heritage. Do we really believe she's a nobody? Do we not? I don't know. I don't want to think about it. I like going into these fresh, so I'm not thinking about the next movie. I'm not thinking about it, just as I didn't think about The Last Jedi going into it. Just went in fresh, and I was completely surprised. I kind of wanted her to be someone, I thought anyway. I thought, yeah, it'd be great if she was a Skywalker, if she was a Kenobi. It would feel a little bit on the nose. I like the idea of her being a nobody. It reintroduces this idea that you don't have to be from a specific bloodline to have Force powers, or to be Force sensitive, or to be a Jedi. Look at all the Jedi in the prequels. Not all of them were Kenobis or Skywalkers or whatever. They were just Force sensitive beings that became Jedi. I love that this movie's reintroducing this idea. It's going, guys, you're theorizing that she has to come from a specific bloodline to be so powerful in the Force. Or maybe she was just born from the Force. Or maybe she's just so Force sensitive. It's happened before in Star Wars. I think that's a great idea. I do kind of still want her to be someone, maybe. I feel like having her be no one was maybe a little bit of a stab in the heart. But maybe that's what we needed in this movie. Maybe this movie just needed to just turn us on our heads. That's exactly what it did. I still hold out the feeling that maybe there's more to the story than Kylo would have Rey believe. I'm not going to speculate on that though, because as I said, I don't like speculating. I want to go in fresh. Another huge thing to address is Snoke. Snoke was decimated in the middle act of the movie. Killed, gone. I didn't expect it. The audience didn't expect it. I'm sure you guys didn't expect it. He's gone. This is the big bad of the movie, and he's wiped out in the middle act. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was unexpected, and I thought it was just inspired, and it was the thing the movie needed. Kylo Ren is now the big bad. This is a guy that people didn't care about in the first movie. I thought he was great. I loved the nuances. I loved Adam Driver's performance. I loved that he was so conflicted and just so, like, it was such a complex character. Adam Driver takes it to a complete other level here. He's incredible in this movie. He's so good. He was like a huge highlight of this movie for me. And now he gets his time to shine. I've spoken to people who hated Kylo Ren in the first movie, loved him in this one. And he's going to go forward to being the big bad of this movie. So I thought that was fantastic. Snoke is dead. But I feel like we probably still haven't seen the rest of Snoke either. But if they decide not to bring Snoke back into it, big, bold move. I think that's great. Seen a lot of people complaining about Poe Dameron's portrayal in this movie. He's a hothead. He flies by the seat of his pants. He has no respect for authority or for the people around him. He's a bit like Han Solo in the original trilogy. He's a flyboy. He does what he thinks is good for himself. But he really is thinking about the other people at the same time. But I think that's what sort of makes Poe relatable. I feel like if Poe hadn't done what he did in the beginning of the movie, the rest of the movie wouldn't have happened. They would have been wiped out. They would have been gone. I thought Poe was great. I love Poe. I think he's fun. He's a brilliant part. That whole opening sequence was incredible. Going back to sort of Kylo Ren, my favourite point in this movie was that sequence with Rey and Kylo fighting back to back. Those beautiful, majestic long shots of them taking on the guards. Incredible! This movie kicks into overdrive at the end, and I loved it. Twist after twist after twist, and you're almost like, in first view, like, what is going on? Yoda was in this. I freaked out when the frame sort of tracked behind Yoda's head. I was like, oh my lord! I let out an audible, Oh my lord, I can't believe it. I thought that was brilliant. I love that they brought him back as a puppet and Frank Oz used the voice that he used in the original movies as opposed to the prequels. That was brilliant. I loved it. It was my favorite sequence of the whole movie and I thought it was just so touching. Carrie Fisher in this movie was fantastic, gorgeous. We're going to go back to her now. Again, I cried just so many moments. That moment with her and Luke. I cried when R2-D2 played back the recording from A New Hope. And I cried when she used the Force. The two things I said I wanted to see in this movie, at the beginning to my mate, I said I want to see Leia use the Force and I want to see Force Ghosts or Yoda. And we got to see Leia finally harnessing a bit of Force power. I feel like that's something they may have explored deeper in Episode 9. But I'm glad they gave her a little moment in this to shine. I'm also glad, I have to say, I'm so glad that they left Carrie Fisher's performance as it was intended. They didn't like write in at the last minute, oh, she dies here. They could have totally taken advantage of that bridge scene where it blows up, she goes out into space. They could have totally taken advantage of that and gone, you know what, this is the way we take Leia out of the story. No! They continued on with the story because she was such an important part of it going into the next movie. And I love that they didn't take an easy way out of killing her out in the movie or just anything so disrespectful like that. Showed her the respect of leaving her final performance the way it was intended, the way she wanted it to be. Beautiful. And that got me emotional as well. I just thought Carrie was fantastic in this. Yeah, I wish I got to see what they did with this character in Episode 9, but it is what it is. I feel like J.J. Abrams has a huge task of writing Leia out of the story somehow. Are we going to have like a big time jump between the next two movies instead of happening back to back? I feel like it's the best way to do it. Leia sort of passes off screen. What are we going to see in the next movie though? We're going to see the reformation of the rebellion. Maybe they're going to start the new Jedi Order up again. Maybe with the help of Luke Skywalker as a Force Ghost, I hope. I feel like maybe the only reason they introduced Yoda in this is some people watching this probably haven't seen the original movies. And that was a good way to introduce the idea of Force Ghosts, which will lead into the next movie where I feel like we're going to get a lot more Force Ghosts. I feel like maybe Luke's going to come back as a Force Ghost, maybe Yoda. I'd love to see Anakin Skywalker come back. Hayden Christensen would be great. Hayden is a great actor when he has good material to work with. I would love to see a Qui-Gon Ghost. I don't know. I'd love to see Luke fulfilling his destiny of creating a new Jedi Order from the Spirit Realm. That would be brilliant. It would be awesome. I would love it. I feel like I feel like our story with Luke isn't done. Luke still has to redeem himself. I love that last sequence. Loved it, loved it, loved it, but I feel like he's got more to give. I feel like this movie ended with a lot of closure. It answered a lot of things, it didn't answer some things, but it didn't leave me with a lot of questions. Like, I almost feel like I come out of this with a sense of closure and like, I'm okay with this. I thought, when I came out of The Force Awakens, I was like, oh my lord, we have to wait 2 years to find out what happens next. I'm almost like with this one, I'm content for now. I feel like I can wait 2 years to find out what happens next. I'm not like hanging out. I don't have any lingering questions. I don't have any things where I'm like, oh my lord, I need to see this. I need to see it now. I feel like I'm content. It had a closure and it beautifully closed with Carrie Fisher, with the new rebellion, starting the new rebellion, and then sort of segued to these kids with Force abilities. Kid grabbed the broom with the Force. I didn't like that on first view, but I came around to it in the second view because I thought it's a beautiful, perfect way to go, okay, the next movie is going to focus on the formation of the rebellion and the formation of a new Jedi Order, and we're going to go all the way back to the beginning again. But I feel like that's not something I need to see right away. I feel like there's a closure to this story. So whatever comes next, I feel like it's going to be an amendment to the story that's been told so far. It's almost going to be like an epilogue. I'm just chilling. I'm happy. We got the Han Solo movie next year, which could be a bomb, but it could be great. I'm going in with an open mind for that one too. Look, guys, I think that's it. I think I've said about everything. I've covered just about everything I need to cover, talked about everything I need to talk about. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this is the spoiler sort of review, reaction thing you wanted. If you agree with my thoughts, fire away in the comments. If you didn't agree, fire away in the comments. If you have a different opinion to me, that's awesome. That's great. It's a great thing about opinions. Everyone has different ones. I love that there's so many varied opinions about this movie. So many people have so many different thoughts. It opens a great discussion. I don't want any of that acidity down in the comments, which is like, you suck for your thoughts. You suck. You don't understand Star Wars. You don't understand it. Don't want any of that. Let's have a civil conversation down below. Any like highly vulgar comments or anything like that, I delete straight away. Let's keep this civil. Let's have a good conversation. Differing thoughts, differing opinions, differing comments. I welcome them all. Let's have a proper discussion down below. Look guys, if you're a first time viewer of my channel, this is the first video of mine you've seen, and you'd like to see some more, then please, at the end of the video, there's got to be a big old subscribe button up on the screen. Hit that if you subscribe to me and you'll be able to keep up to date with all my future videos. To all my regular viewers out there, thank you once again for joining me. To absolutely everybody out there, hit that like button down below if you liked it. It does a great deal in getting my videos out there. And look, I hope I'll see everyone again soon. I can't talk now, so I'm going to go and rest up. So, thank you for... sounding a little bit like Yoda, I am. I hope I'll see everyone again soon. Until next time though, guys, take it easy, and may the Force be with you. And may the Force be with you always. 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 I can't do it. See you later.